Hello, welcome to Elevate with Brigitte. I'm your host, Brigitte Adokwe Japon. Brigitte is a management consultant and an author. Today, we have a special guest here. He's an agent of impact and change. His name is Robbie. Robbie is a leadership coach whose work focuses on creativity, leading with honor, and the craft of coaching. Alongside his direct client work, he has run coaching and training facilitation for organizations like Moonpig, the Royal Opera House, and more. Ruby, welcome to Elevate with Brigitte podcast show. We are delighted to have you here.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Brigitte. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Welcome again. We would like to know who you are, and though we have said a little things about what you do and where you are speaking from.
Yeah, so Brigitte, I'm speaking from Southwest London in the UK, and it's lovely to be speaking to you from the other side of the world, another part of the world, and isn't it a lovely thing that we can do that? My work is a lot about people, and you've kind of hinted at the things that I focus that work on. So often it's when I'm working with leaders, often the work is about how to help them, be successful without having to compromise who they are. So how do they lead in line with their values? I love the craft of coaching. I think the way that it's a very powerful way for us to support each other and to help other people grow. And so I do work to help other coaches and to help train people as coaches. And perhaps the biggest part of my work at the moment is about creativity. That's the subject of the book that I released last year. And really it's about, why do we sometimes want to do something, but we don't do it? We really want to do it, but for some reason it just doesn't happen. And that's what I was like quite a lot. And that's the subject of the book, How to Start When You're Stuck.
Okay, wow, that's nice. I have read, let's say, a portion, but because of my book launch and other activities, I didn't finish it. But I love everything about the book. And I know a lot of people around the world will love to do a little bit of major things about creativity, like writing a book, drawing, all those things regarding creativity. So I saw something about 12 method about creativity. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about the book is that I didn't really set out to write it. What happened actually was that my coach and I designed a practice because I was really anxious and scared of sharing the things I'd made, or sharing anything really online. And so what happened was, in the end, we created a writing practice, which evolved into a place where what I would do is I would set a timer for 12 minutes. And the game was write while the timer is going, stop when the timer stops, and then post whatever I've written online on LinkedIn as part of a blog. And I did this really to get out of my own way, to stop procrastinating, and to become more confident at sharing things I'd written. And then what was interesting was, and that essentially on one level is the 12-minute method. So, if you do something for 12 minutes a week over a long time, that was all I was doing, once a week writing one blog post. But after 3 years, I realized I had about 80,000 words. And when I rearranged those posts, those articles, they actually made sense as not just one book, but a series of books that'll come out this year. And the first of that is the one I mentioned already. And really, I think the 12-minute method for me is that if you do something regularly, even just for 12 minutes a week over a period of 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, you can create something quite amazing, even just 12 minutes at a time.
So your 12-minute method is more about, you say small step at a time, you move slowly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because one of the things I'm working on the second book at the moment, which will be called How to Keep Going When You Want to Give Up. And wow. It's interesting to think about that, small steps. And one of the things I've been thinking is, it would be great to do lots and lots of big steps really fast. But actually over time, that's really hard to keep up. And, I've now been writing 12 minutes a week for 5.5 years. So I've got, probably well over 100,000 words now of articles in that. And there's 200 and something of them. And it's, there's no way I would have kept it up going this long if it hadn't been small, manageable steps.
That's nice. Your book is telling us that even with success, it takes small steps to move, because sometimes we do usually compare ourselves with others. Oh, my friend is writing a book. She has already brought like 3 or 4 books. Look, I am doing nothing. But your book is telling us that we should take a step at a time, and it will pay off one day.
I think so. And Brigitte, just to say, because you've published quite a few books on Amazon, like you have that effect on me a little bit, right? I look at you and I'm like, oh, look, Brigitte's done like 6 books. I've only done 1, and it does feel like that. And we have to, but what happens if we think too much about that? At least what happens for me is I give up on things. And what I feel like I've learned from the 12-minute method is, as long as I am doing something to move myself towards where I want to be, even a tiny 12-minute thing every week, then that's much, much better than doing nothing.
Yeah, it's great. And I've seen that creativity is not just a practice, it's a habit. Because with me going back or reflecting on my book, I started with one book my mind was just to share my message out. But later, when I enter into the book industry, seeing people, the problems of people, I realized, no, I have something big I have to help people with. So sometimes I would have an idea on a different thing, because I remember when you came out, it's around November, I had an idea on emotions. So I started researching, interviewing people about it, and it came like it's not yet out, but I'll say it's like 90% complete. So it's a good thing. So how can one perfect his or her creativity lifestyle?
It's a great question, Brigitte. The way I think about it is that we can't make great work happen, but we can create the conditions for it to happen. And one of the most important condition is that we start. If we don't start anything creative ever, we won't have it, and we won't have that creative lifestyle. And then the second most important condition is that we keep going. So I really believe in the idea of a creative habit. Sometimes I think people think that creativity is magic somehow, but when I've researched and heard stories about creative people from all kinds of backgrounds and industries, what they seem to have in common is that they have a creative practice. So there's a time in the day or the week or the year where they go and they sit and they do some work, and they accept that it won't always be good, it won't always be perfect, but by sitting down and trying to create and keeping going for as long as they decide to, that it makes it much more likely that they're creating something. So I think that would be the foundation of a creative lifestyle.
Yeah, that's great. So, in case someone wants to write a book, he or she has the idea to write it. So, what are some of the things you love to advise the person on?
Yeah, it's interesting, Brigitte. In some ways, I don't know if I am the best person to advise people on writing a book, because
you are the best.
Well, because I didn't set out to do it. So what I know, Brigitte, is that we have to do the writing, and we have to sit down and do it, and we have to do all the things we need to resist the distractions. That's one of the important things. So if I was to give advice, and thank you for saying that I am a good person to do it, it would be to really connect to why it's important to write the book. And for me, my book came from wanting to be someone different, wanting to be someone who was able to share things they've made with other people. And I practiced doing that by writing the blog and writing what I was interested in and following my intuition. And then I got it. Then it became a book, and that was just what it kind of was meant to be. So the first thing I guess I would say is connect to really why you want to do it. And then I think perhaps the other thing I would say is just, one of the things is the acceptance that it won't be perfect. And in fact, it has to not be perfect. It'll never be completely finished. And probably for many people that perfectionism is what stops them. And so much better to have written a book, and this is my view, much better to have written a book, to have done the practice and to have shared it, than to just have this idea stuck in your mind forever. And I certainly have felt it, to me, it often feels like a kind of creative hell, or it has felt like that, a creative hell, to have this idea that I know I want to have turned into a business or a book, and I haven't done it. And so to, to make the start and, even just for 12 minutes a day or a week and practice in that manner, practice the first part of it is just write it all, one step, 12-minute bit at a time. Then later you can worry about trying to get it good and turn it into a book and all that kind of thing. So I don't know, do you think that was good advice? You know about this as well, Brigitte. You know about writing books. What do you think?
One problem we writers and authors we face is the imposter syndrome. When you want to write a book, sometimes you get a self-judging mindset. Oh, you are not perfect. You can't do this. Like, you get a lot of ideas. I remember I told myself I'm not perfect because I told a friend I want to write a book because I went to a seminar and they were saying if you want to write a book, you have to look for accountability partners. Those friends, they didn't help me. They rather brought my spirit down that I'm not perfect. I have to be like Tony Robbins, Robin Sharma, those big people. Me too. When I check my life, I am not near them. So I decided to pause. But because I started writing something, when it comes to writing and the mind, because you have written something, the mind reminds you on those activities that you are doing. Though I was in fear, I was in doubt, but still the plan of writing a book was in mind. So it's a good advice. Yeah,
Brigitte, what that makes me think of is two more things that you mentioned there that are really important. Having the right people around you. That's really important. There are a lot of people, who like to criticize and I'm sure, and they don't understand somehow that the importance of encouraging people. And so I think it is really important. I've got a Facebook group for the 12-minute method. It's not a big group, but the people in there are enthusiastic and they want to support each other. And when we have a community like that around us, it makes writing a book much easier. And you're right, accountability partners, I think that's a great idea, but they have to be the right people who are going to encourage, because often, especially if we're early in our creative journey, we feel like an imposter. We're very fragile. Our creativity is fragile and what we're making is fragile. And so we don't want somebody around who might break it at that early stage. So having the right people around, I think that's really important. And then just to say something about imposter as well, throughout the publishing of my book, I felt that often. Who am I to do this? My book isn't exactly like you say. I'm not Tony Robbins, and I haven't done as much research into my book as some people have. It's written about my experience, and sometimes you have books written by professors, and I'm not a professor. And I kept thinking, who am I to have written this book? So another piece of advice I would have is what I did at those times is I have a document where I save the praise that people give me, so that when I am feeling like, who am I to do this, I can go to that document and read what people have written about me and remember that there are people who think my work is great. And collecting those testimonials, I think that's a really nice piece of advice. And pretty much everyone who's ever been brave enough to share their work will have had somebody who said they liked it. And so collect those people, remember those people who said they liked it, who said what you made was meaningful. So that when you're in the moments where you're feeling fearful or like an imposter, you can remind yourself that there's for someone, the work will matter. And really for me, the decision I made years ago, it was an insight from some coaching from my friend Inga, was that if one person was positively impacted, even just one, by something I'd made, then it was worth making it. And so I think that's probably another piece of advice that's important to me.
Yeah. And also with the imposter, one way you can control is like affirmations. Though it will be difficult in the beginning, but affirmation is a great mechanism. And also with the imposter, what I've realized is when you start the idea pops in mind, you decide to write it. You see a heavy imposter come upon you, you feel like you don't want to do it. And after you have overcome it, in the middle, let's say a chapter to finish the book, you get it again. So like, due to my experience, that's what I got. And when the book goes to a beta reader, a publisher, and it's about to be published, a heavy imposter syndrome will come.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the worst bit for me right at the end. Really, really bad.
Yeah.
Look, by that point, Brigitte, near the start of my book, I've got some people who have written testimonials about the 12-minute method. And I would right towards the end, I would have to read those to myself and go, these people wouldn't have written this unless they believed it was true. So it must be worth publishing the book. But you're right, the imposter syndrome was big right at the end.
Yeah. Like it comes in different stages. If you're able to control one, then it rests a little, then it comes in bigger food.
Yeah. But what I learned from my blog, and I hope this will be true of my books, is that it was I got more confident with my blog as time went on. So with the first blog posts, I was quite scared and anxious about posting them. And gradually it got easier as I practiced and got more and more confident at sharing things. So I'm hoping that the second book will be a little easier than the first, and maybe the third book will be even easier than that.
It will be easy because like the first book is you are new, you don't know anything about the industry. So the second book will flow. You see that your writing style will even change, like it will improve.
I'm glad to hear that.
They said experience is the best teacher. And also in your book, I saw business plan. Hey, why business plan? I'm exhibiting my creativity, my hobby, my passion. Why business plan?
Well, one of the things I think, Brigitte, is that actually having a business is creative. So the full title of my book is How to Start a Book, a Business, or a Creative Project When You're Stuck. Books, businesses, creative projects, they have lots of things in common. They're all about creating something from nothing. There wasn't a cafe there until you opened your cafe. There wasn't a management consultancy there until somebody started it. So there is a creative element to it. And usually, on some level, a business is trying to make the world a better place. And so often the books are trying to do that and the creative projects. So they have things in common, but the business plan idea in my book is one that I borrowed from a coach of mine. And he ran his business for many years with a one-line business plan. So this is not about, in my view, I hate the idea of a business plan because it sounds like it involves spreadsheets and, lots of long report, 10-page report or something with lots of tables and timelines on it. But I liked Rich had a one-line business plan, which was meet fun and interesting people, something like that. And that's how he grew his coaching business. And it worked really well. He was very successful. And it meant that whenever he was in doubt, the great thing about a one-line business plan is whenever he's in doubt, he just has to think, okay, my plan is meet some fun and interesting people. If I don't know what to do this week, what I can ask is, how do I meet some fun and interesting people? And you can have that kind of plan for a book as well. For me, one of what I write about in the book is the idea of a particular feeling that I have in my chest. And that's usually, that's the feeling of creativity, I think, although I don't say that in the book, but in this moment, that's what I'm noticing. It's the feeling that I'm on the right path. And if I slow down and I'm not sure what to do, I can listen for that feeling and then I can follow it. Another way that I think about, in some ways, another one-line business plan of mine is the idea that the things we struggle with the most are the most important things for our soul's evolution. And that comes out of a book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And so sometimes, if I'm really struggling with something, if it's really frightening to me, I kind of know that if I can do that, that will help me grow. And so, sometimes I'm being called on by the little feeling in my chest. And that's my one-line business plan. And that's really why I chose to publish these books, because I had that feeling. I just knew it was the thing I needed to do. And sometimes I think, right, if I'm really scared of this, if I'm really resisting it, then it's probably really important for me to do. So those are the kind of business plans that I'm interested in, less so the long, 10-page documents with timelines and budgets.
That's a nice thing, because I know with a business plan, apart from your one word or one sentence, I know some of them also, I've seen a book, it's a one-page business plan.
Yeah, I think the key thing is sometimes we get caught up in writing a business plan because we think we need to do that. And I guess, as my book title suggests, I believe it's better to be starting. So if people want to write a business plan for their business or a plan for their book, fantastic, do that. But don't let it hold you back from starting for too long. You can adjust the business plan later. And I like the idea of a one-line or maybe even a one-page business plan, because that's about as much as you need to get going. And most important is that we start our business, that we start our book, that we don't have the idea, think we need to write a business plan, and then in 3 years we still haven't started the started the business or the book. Most important is to start.
Okay, that's nice. A nice thing. And I'm thinking about also, since your book is about creativity and productivity, do you have any productivity tool in mind that you think my listeners have to know regarding how to be creative?
I mean, in some ways, Brigitte, there are lots. I mean, the deepest one really is the 12-minute practice. It's like consistency is an incredible productivity tool. You know, it's like the story of the tortoise and the hare. Better to go slow, but continue moving the whole time than to start, go fast, stop, wander around, right? So that would be one. And then another one is, you know, how do we resist distractions? So I think that with all of our mobile phones and apps, there's so many ways that we can get distracted. If we're going to do some creative time, the best thing is for it to be productive in that time. The best thing is to not be distracted. So if you can carve out 30 minutes where you turn your phone off and you close your email and you do some other work, that's probably like it sounds simple, but I think it is really quite profound when we do that, the impact it can have.
Okay, that's nice. This is what I usually do when we are getting to the end of the interview. So what's your final word or advice to my listeners? I
think it's just start. You know, I think like it's really important to remember whatever the little, you know, lots of people have them, like that a little thing in the back of their mind that they want to do, you know, they kind of wish they'd done already. And, you know, my advice, my final thing would be start. Just find 12 minutes today and set a timer for 12 minutes. Give yourself a chance to start, whether that's a book that you've been thinking about writing or a blog post or a business or a new website. Just do 12 minutes of work on it today. And what often I find is, you know, I'm not feeling like doing the work that matters to me with my business or my book or whatever until I start. And then when I start, I suddenly feel excited and inspired. So my thought for your listeners would be, please, whatever that little thing is that you wish you'd started, find yourself 12 minutes today and start it.
Okay, that's great. So where can we get your book and how we can contact you? Any special offer, special packages for us?
Yeah, well, Brigitte, so you can get my book on Amazon, and it should be appearing in some other places as well, but it's definitely on Amazon. You can find me at robbieswale.com. That's ROBBIESWALE.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook and all those kinds of things. And yeah, I'd love to make an offer actually to your listeners, which is I'll send you a link, Brigitte, and maybe you can put it in the show notes, to the chance to download a draft copy of the fourth book in the series, the 12-Minute Method series, which will come out later this year. So there's a draft of it done already, and it's about sharing your work even when you're scared. So for me, starting is the most important thing, but there's something very powerful when we share our work and make it impact on other people. So I'd love to offer a draft copy of that book to anybody who's listening, who's interested, and I will share a link with you so that you can pop it in the show notes or something like that. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I would love to share it, and I'll be the first person to grab a copy.
Please do. Yeah, and if people want to connect with me on, you know, LinkedIn or Twitter or anywhere like that, please do, and let me know that you heard this conversation, because it's been an absolute pleasure to have it with you, and I'd love to connect with any listeners who'd like to connect.
Thank you for coming. And listeners, you heard Mr. Robbie. You have to start with the 12-minute method. So thank you for tuning in once again, and I appreciate your support and love. Stay blessed and bye-bye.